Scott, I'd love to ask a bonus question because you
Sure.
see the outcome of, what happens from these bad actors.
Hmm.
How can companies, and what advice would you give these companies to
Sure.
synthesize cybersecurity and business operations?
Well, to be able to synthesize and I think that's a really great question, by the way. To be able to boil it down and understand where the key relationships are. I've had some help with this, so I'm not going to say that the total idea here is 100% mine. But what I am going to share is this, and this is what we call the. Well, that's not right. So that was an epic fail. Here we go with cyber again, right? So here and here. So what we call this is the enterprise relationship paradigm, right? And we went through and we were bored one day. We went through and we mapped out how business units interact inside of companies, what they care about, what they're responsible for, right? And how all of that moves into risk management over profit, right? So if you want to synthesize things down, this model right here really does it, right? So for example, you have information security over here on the left. They're responsible for application system and interface security. They have stakeholder collaborator level into the compensating controls, which come through the change board, asset management, config management, as well as the connectivity of networks. But they're not responsible for auditable data and oversight, which is compliance, which then feeds into business use and change control. Just like the C-suite, right, goes into business use, but business scalability and growth, which is responsible for the vision and guidance, right? So now what you're really dealing with is how do you define a data-driven decision versus a data-centric business? And so the data-driven decision side of the business goes into risk management versus the data-centric side of the business, which looks at profit, right? I've never seen this anywhere else. So when you look at a company, whether you're a startup or a mature practice, this model right here is really from the collective of years and years and years and years of information security services work and being in the security community. This really shows you a whole hell of a lot, and it should open up eyes for a lot of people, right? So application development teams, right? They care about the technical scalability of growth. They care about techno enterprise functionality. They have drivers into system software, right? But they're not the same as management and staff, right? Which also goes into enterprise functionality and business scalability. So the management and the C-suite work together, right? Management and dev work together. Dev and IT work together. You see how this works?
Yep.
Right. So compliance, security, and IT all work together to achieve their half of the model. Board management and application development work together to take care of their half of the model. And then all of these different parts come together to provide vision and guidance, oversight, right? Application system interfacing, servers, software and data flows, and process procedures workflows, right? Now, some could easily make an argument that compliance cares about process procedures and workflows. Not really. What they care about is the auditable data and oversight of the business itself, right? So as you're working through these different areas, right, you have to be able to take into account who cares about what. And then that right there should be able to define what in those areas equals stakeholder value. And when you get into the stakeholder value, then you put the security on top of that to protect that stakeholder value. Right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. This is fascinating.
Like like I said, I've never seen that anywhere. So I had help in making this. I'm not going to say who, right? And I'm not going to say that this is originally mine, but I definitely had input in this, right? And we're actually working on a multi-company collaboration called Risk is Debt, right? And we will be releasing that here soonish. We have to get that back online. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to say this amount of debt equals this amount of risk mitigation for this vertical against this business, right? So The real question is how are we identifying risk? How are we translating it over to debt? And what the hell are we doing about it? The other thing that has not been beneficial to a lot of companies has been the shared security model. As we're putting systems, and I'm pivoting, by the way, as we're putting systems inside of AWS, GCP, Azure, right? The layer one, half of layer two is them, the other half of layer two through layer 7 is us. It really needs to be a collaborative effort. I personally, my own humble opinion, and I may get shot for this online, but I think we should throw that model out the window and say, if you are hosting a system with these people, they will make sure that your stuff is secure, period, end of story. We've seen too many breaches where we have servers that are in the cloud or bare metals getting hosed because patches aren't being applied correctly. Service providers really should know what's in their environment, instead of sitting back saying, well, that's not our problem. Guess what? It is. I'm waiting for the day where we do break through in legal to say to a service provider, no, there's actually been case law written about service providers and their liability. So, it's something that, if you feel passionately enough about, you can totally find me on Twitter.
Sounds good. I love it.